Hola, hello everybody.
Hi everyone, welcome to this League of LATAM. Somehow we have the honor of having Jason Chein, my dear colleague and friend over here. Thank you, Jason, for being here and giving us some minutes.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
All right, so I'm gonna say it as it is. I'm just super flattered that we have. I mean, we're working right now. We work together at Amber, but he's a very good friend with a lot of track record that I want him to talk about. It's gonna be all in English. He comes directly from Taiwan. Yes, you came from Taiwan, right?
Yeah, you can say that. Taiwan,
You've been
Seattle. I come from the airport. That's what it's like, and I'm on my way to the airport. What, in an hour?
Yeah. So he gave us a few minutes so you can get to know him and ask him some questions. So if you're seeing this, just remember to put your questions in the comments, and the production is gonna hand them over in the screen. And Jason, all right. So this is a chit chat in between friends.
Yeah.
You have been in this industry for how long?
I started in 1992.
Dude,
Yes. Don't ask me where my gray hairs are.
Exactly. I was gonna ask you that.
Oh no! Every day I grab a Sharpie and I start paint them black. So then I'm not as old as I don't look as old as I am.
Have you always been this passionate about the video game industry? I mean, you're gonna die doing this, right?
Oh yeah, no, I have nowhere else to go. I sort of trapped myself to a dead end career. No, I being a big gamer all my life. Started out playing old school, games on the watch. If you're really old like me, like you know the Nintendo Game and Watch. That was like my first console,
Dude.
And then I saved up all the money. Me and my brother, we got our first Nintendo systems. Oh, actually, Apple IIe. Before that, when you're playing games on a music cassette tape, right. You load it in, you wait 15 minutes, and you play those old school games. Right. And then Nintendos and all that. I mean, PC, being a big time gamer.
Nice. So by now you may know our age because of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Time to Google, Yeah. So very, very, very old school stuff. But
so who is Jason Chein and what he wants to do for the following years? How did you enter the industry? I mean, you were obviously a passionate gamer.
Yeah, it's really by accident. Playing a lot of PC games. I was born and raised in Taiwan, but moved to the US when I was 13.
Right.
And we were playing a PC game called Comanche, which is a helicopter simulation game, and 3D, but it's really all sprites. And what was unique with that game is that it has a terrain. They use the voxel technology, not the voxel that we know it today, but really it's just a height map.
Right.
And they simulate these terrains. So it looks super cool, right? This is sophisticated. This is like before 3D graphics. And then the game actually takes up 4 megabytes of RAM. So in order to play the game, and me and my brother have to go to the neighbors to say, we're going to upgrade your PC. And the reason is to borrow the 2 megs of RAM from that machine so we can put it into our own machine to play this game. Awesome. Now, long story short, we bought an expansion pack for the game and by a company called Nova Logic. This is down in Southern California. And in there's a hiring notice. It's like, oh, we're looking for programmers. We're looking for designers. We're looking for artists. I was like, yeah. And I was in high school.
In the product.
They're very smart, right? This is before social media. This is before streaming.
Exactly.
You still find job ads in newspapers. So there was this ad in there, and I was in high school at the time. I was like, I want to apply for this job. Obviously, my resume was just my name and address. I have 0 work experience. And I wrote up this cover letter saying, hey, I'm learning C++ myself. I'm drawing in Deluxe Paint. And I have all these crazy game ideas. And then I wrote it in, still letter with stamp and all that. Again, old school. And then mailed it in. 3 days later, I got a reply with a company letterhead, company envelope. And they say, thank you for your passion. In a very polite way, we don't have a relevant job for you. But if you don't mind, come over. We will give you pizza. We'll give you T-shirts. And you can be a QA tester.
Dude.
And I was like, done.
What a way to be recruited.
Yeah. Then from that point on, every day after school, I just head over there and play the latest build of the game. And that's how I got started as a QA.
Wow. So yeah, again,
working for pizza.
another success story. Working for pizza. Another success story coming from QA, dude.
Yeah, no, it
The
was
entry level job as always.
entry level job. But the beauty is that, what I love the most about that job is as you play different versions of the game, right? Every build, right? You sort of seeing them building a skyscraper from the ground up.
Uh-huh.
So you sort of get a better sense of how things are put together, how things are fitting together. Then as you write up bugs, you try to communicate in a way that's easy for the programmers to understand, for the designers to understand, for the artists to understand. And then in many ways, as they respond to you saying, verify this bug for me, verify this fix for me, I know where the problem is. Again, that's how I got to learn more and more about the trade and how the game was built.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you were more passionate about other areas after that. So after you entered as a tester, as a QA guy, then what happened then? So you were like super curious about the rest of the stuff.
Super curious about the rest of the things. Start talking to everybody, learning, all different aspects of the development, and obviously, want to get my hands dirty, right? But I'm the kind of guy with like ADD. I was like, oh, I'm gonna try programming. I'm gonna try art. I'm gonna try all these things, and then I realized that, over time, there are a lot of smart people in this industry.
Right.
Right. And there's like great programmers, great artists, and all that. And obviously for me, I realized the best thing I can do is try to facilitate, try to, make sure the information is transparent. Try to, work with everybody in different.
You became a producer.
And then I became a producer. And really what a producer is for me, and I learned this also I was very lucky throughout my career. A lot of people opening up doors for me.
Thank you for bringing that up. Luck, man. You need also luck, right? Factor in the luck. I mean, I have found so many people that think that they were so bright and they were so talented and that's why they got where they got. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, there's luck there too. Where you were born is, I mean, you're lucky because of that too.
Yeah.
And stuff like that matters, man.
But running to the right mentor, I think, was the thing that was the biggest thing for me. Like, remember,
the right mentor?
Yeah, like, so David Seehoser, if you're watching this, Dave, I think he's, last I checked, he's at Blizzard now. He's the guy who said, hey, do you want to be the QA? Right?
Wow.
And if he didn't give me that opportunity, I don't think I'll be here today. And when I was in university, I took on a production internship, and Dale, my other boss, he was like, I didn't know how to make games, but I shipped one, and I wrote this producer's handbook. Like this big binder of him. Dale wrote it, and it's like, well, you're new. Boom, enjoy like reading this. And then I was like, this is awesome. And the thing I quickly learned about being a good producer at the end of the day is you have to give your team everything they need to do their job. Right. You work for everybody on the team.
Understanding that they're the ones that are the experts somehow.
Exactly.
That's the hard part, right?
That is the hard part. Like, yeah, you can argue on one hand, I mean, the focal point of this team, but reality is my job is to make sure everybody has what they need. Right.
And then I mean, a lot of things came after that for sure, right? So you were marrying companies and some of the hard lessons, maybe. What was the hardest lesson, the biggest mistake somehow, or the biggest?
Wow, so many. Where do I start? No. Actually, I tried not to make the same mistake twice. I try. The keyword is tried. So let's see some of the big mistakes I've made.
And what did you learn? Obviously, because that's the interesting part about making mistakes, right? That's the essence of learning. It's fucking it up and actually having the support to keep on doing them. Totally.
I mean, there are so let me try to give something concrete without giving too much context, as that will take forever. Then I'll miss my flight. But I would say one big mistake I have made was I put into too many assumptions. Right, a lot of times I didn't try to fully understand the context, the background, and then I'll jump into a conclusion. I mean, oh, that's a stupid thing. That's like, that's dumb, that's not the right way to do it,
Right.
and without really truly understanding the context,
Yeah, the whole thing.
the whole
macro
thing,
picture.
and then the big picture. Exactly. What I was missing was the big picture, and then they'll go in there and bold those things too, and I'm gonna do it this my way, and you can say, yeah, I got my objective done, but the reality is it had a cascading and negative impact to the
Right.
rest of the project. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, who effed it up? It was Jason, and because of this and because of that. So I try to be, I guess, nowadays I'm getting too old as well. So I try to take a step back, try to observe, try to understand, especially everybody's point of view,
Right.
all these different perspectives.
That's hard too.
That's hard too. But one thing how I got through all these things at the end of the day is to try to understand everybody's motivation.
Mm.
Okay.
It's easier to negotiate when you understand what really moves somebody else.
Exactly.
When everybody wins, right? But I don't understand what's winning for you. So I need to understand that.
Yeah. On the surface, you can say we're all here to ship a great game. But that's not the motivation. That's just an objective. Motivation is, why are you doing this?
Right,
What is it in it for you?
Yeah.
Well, what is it in it for everybody, right? You have to understand that. And not saying when people are selfish, that's just human nature.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And once you know,
it's not always the money, right?
It's not the money.
A lot of people tend to think that it's just the mercenary part of it.
No, it's not about the money.
It's an industry of passions.
Yeah. So once you know everybody's motivation, then you try to find common grounds. Then you can build consensus. And when everybody see, oh, there's something in this for me, then no questions asked. Everybody will be going in the same direction. Took me a long time to figure that part out.
Right.
And I'm not good at it, but at least I know it's a way to accomplish an objective.
Dude, that's a great tip. That's a great tip. It's just like take 2 step backs, kind of trying to understand the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's hard because there are like many stakeholders that you don't even have contact with.
Mm-hmm.
That's even harder, right?
Yeah. And then it's trying to break down those barriers.
Right. Interesting. All right. So China, man. Sorry, you gotta tell us about China. I mean, you were leading EA in China. That's crazy. That's mind-boggling for me. I've always wanted to talk to you about this, and this might be the space. But how's it like?
It's very different now, right? I mean, we're talking about back in 2006,
right?
So for context for the audience here, I started going to China in 2004 on behalf of Microsoft. I was part of the Xbox team that's trying to push and launch the Xbox 360 hardware into Asia, particularly China.
Right.
And because of that, and prior to Microsoft, I was working for EA, just a straight up producer / development director on various games.
Mm-hmm.
And after I was going to China on behalf of Microsoft, EA heard about it, and we talked about, coming back to EA, and with the purpose of moving to China to set up a brand new studio for EA. And long story short, I was like, yeah, that sounds exciting. So I went out there. EA, just so you know, back in those days, EA was very accustomed to buying up studios. Maxis or Westwood, all these studios that EA was just straight up acquire. But at that moment, there was really no viable target in China. Because when you acquire a studio, the hardest thing is integrating it. This is how EA does things. You have to make sure this studio can adopt to some of the EA ways.
And the culture.
And the culture, the language, and all that. So at that time, EA felt like, hey, it's a small gamble to send this dude over there with, just 4 suitcases. It was literally me and 4 suitcases going out there and try to build a studio. Now, I was lucky. EA already have a facility teams there, HR team there, finance team there.
Oh,
so
that's
some of
cool.
the infrastructure is there,
Right,
but I
right.
still had to hire. I still had to, build up that organization.
Right. They have production already? So yeah.
No, they don't have production. It was
Or like the shared
marketing.
services
Yeah,
already.
all the
Okay.
shared services are
Right,
there.
got it.
And for me, it's like, okay, if I'm going to build a studio and also build it in the EA way, what can I do? It's not like I'm immediately going to be handed a franchise and a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
development budget and go build something, right? We have to establish that there is talent in China and this talent can work in the EA way and blah, 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 blah. So initially set out there, say, well, the lowest hanging fruit is art production.
Right.
So that's what we started doing, hiring artists. But at the time in China, there's a lot of art studios already, primarily, or subsidiaries of Japanese companies like Tosei, like Koei, like Sega,
Right.
and then Ubisoft has been there for a long time. So there's all these subsidiaries and also art outsourcing vendors. So that is immediately we know there are talents there. But the question is how to hire these talents and how to integrate them into the EA structure.
It was a nightmare.
No, it was not a nightmare. But I will tell you this though: in the very beginning, when we pick up phone calls, because we get resumes, right? And then it's like, hey, so and so, we would like to arrange your interview, and this is EA. They'd be like, who? Who's EA?
Oh my god.
And they'd be like, oh, we make Need for Speed, or we make FIFA.
You
got to talk about games. Like, oh, okay, now I know who you guys are. And then that's what opened up the door. But building a new organization in a new location, trying to keep the essence of the company culture was a little bit tricky, right? Luckily, I have been at EA for almost 5 years then, so I was already conditioned to know what an EA developer looks like, how we behave, what we value. So one rule we set is in the beginning, we never hire more than 3 people from the same company.
Oh, interesting. So you wouldn't get like the bad habits of a specific.
I wouldn't say bad habits, the subcultures. Yeah. Right? You don't want people to come in there and say, oh, I cannot break into that group because they all used to work with each other or know each other, and then I'm this new guy.
Because they tend to bring over like the team that they have to work with.
Yeah, people be like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm gonna bring my buddy. I was like, I'd love to have your buddies, but we're gonna in the very, very beginning. Like I think that rule remained until we get to around like 75 people.
Oh wow!
And it was hard, right? Because that's something you're running out of the places to recruit from.
Right, exactly. Even being China, right? Because
yeah, I mean China is so big, and but at that time it's still in the early days of the industry there in China. Like you can't just hire from a lot of people. So we started to ease things up, and when we get bigger teams. When we get more teams in place, then we started to say, okay, we're going to hire someone from this company. That person goes to a different team, works on a different project.
Oh, interesting. So
again, we try to purposely split things up just so that people don't come in with their, they're not preconditioned, right? Then they start to see what EA value the most, which a lot of it is we're result driven. Where a lot of it is about ownership, about accountabilities, and about teamwork and all that. So slowly, we were able to build an EA culture there.
How big was it at the end? So you stayed there for 2 years or something like that? 3 years?
On the studio side of it, I stayed for about 2 years, and then I took on more responsibilities and eventually took over the entire EA China operations. Nice. By the time I left 3 years later, we were almost 250 people.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's when you met Mihai, or was it before?
Oh, Mihai, yeah. Mihai, the founder of Ember Studio, we actually, we were like this group of young GM at EA at the time that, we were sent to all these remote locations that, frankly speaking, if we fail miserably, no one would notice. And no one would care, right? And so Mihai was in Romania, I was in, and then we have this mutual friend Ken in India. Same thing. We were these like sort of young group of GMs.
And take a look at what it grew to be, right?
And then and then we'll be like, hey, we're fearless, because like we got nothing to lose. What's the worst gonna happen?
That's so cool, man. Yeah. What a great story. Because
Thank you.
Were like founders of the whole thing over there.
It was exciting. It was a great
the
journey.
pioneers, not the founders. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I would say like my biggest sort of reward out of that journey was that studio is still there.
Right. Exactly.
They're still kicking ass. And a lot of the people that I work with in the very first year and second year,
Now
they're still there.
leaders over
And they're
there.
still there. And the people who moved on, they start ending up in these great studios doing great work. I like to take credit for their success.
Dude,
but
that's awesome.
no,
That's
but
awesome.
they all earned that. And I got to say, I was lucky and have the opportunity to work with these guys.
One final question, because I know you got to go and take your plane, and
Yeah.
I really thank you on a personal level, because I really wanted to just chat with you about this.
No,
And there's a ton of people that actually values all this kind of information. So a lot of the people that actually see us, they are like gamers that want to be game devs and confused, game development, gaming, the whole thing.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
we have a community of game developers all over Latin America. So what would be your advice for them to just enter the industry? What do you think of Latin America per se? Because you have seen like how regions actually start growing. Do you see certain patterns or something that could actually be matched out in your point of view, or what's your take on this?
Wow. So let's just stick this into
Yeah, it's two questions.
two groups, right? So Latin America. The first time I came down to south of the border was to Mexico City.
Okay.
I was doing management consulting at the time and helping out TV Azteca in Mexico City to secure some esports broadcasting rights. So Gears of War, for example. And that was really eye-opening for me, just to see LATAM and then like the gamers, the passion they have, and it was just crazy. Like the energy level was like over the top, through the roof. Then joined Amber, have the opportunity to come to Guadalajara, meeting the team. Now I see it from the other point of view, right? Like you have the gamers, now as the game developers.
Yeah, right.
Really, really exciting. And last November, I was fortunate enough to take my son to Sao Paulo,
To Brazil.
because
Crazy, right?
he is a Pokemon trading card player. And through that, I was lucky to have an opportunity to go to Brazil. And while I didn't go there to observe the game development community, I saw like these great looking murals, on the walls, and then all the paintings, just like a very colorful. I mean, just like Mexico, very colorful place, very artistic place. And what it tells me is that there are raw talent in these locations.
Right.
Now, to you answer your other question, how do you get into the games industry? I'm sorry, man. You guys are already in the games industry.
That's it.
The games industry is not like how we used to be, where you have to know someone who knows someone and beg for a job and work for no pay, work for pizza and t-shirt like I did. You are already in the games industry. You know why? Because the tools are there already.
That's crazy.
You have game engines. Back in the days, we had to write everything ourselves. We even have to write our own paint program because Deluxe Paint couldn't do what we needed to do, right? And you are already in industries. You have access to the tools. You have access to the marketplaces. Everybody can self-publish nowadays. Now you can argue, yeah, it's hard to attract my players and all that.
And have it as in your track record, and that talks wonders about you, right?
Exactly. Ship games, okay?
Ship games.
Just ship something. All right, just ship it. Honestly, you don't know until you get it out there.
Right.
And you really don't know game development, I would say, until you really put everything and then you say, this is it. Back in my days, is put everything on a floppy disk, and then like people don't even have ways to patch it. So if you have a bug in there, you're dead, right? I remember playing like Eye of a Beholder, a D&D game, and then they have a divide by zero error, and it would just crash the entire thing, and no patch.
Right.
There's no way to patch it.
No way to change it.
But now things are different. It's operating as a service. But what I'm trying to say is, you are already in the industry. This is your playground. Go for it. Think of the wildest ideas. You have the tools, you have the means, you have the community to do it, and you will find your own audience. And even if you can get this into, the next top 10 download on the App Store, don't be discouraged, because there are so many opportunities there, and all the skills you learn from shipping 1, 2, 3, 10 games is all going to be applicable.
Right.
And apply that to the next one. Learn from it. And that would be my advice.
Thank you, Jason Chein. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thank you, production, for everything. Thank you for just getting this done. There's a bunch of people in likes over there on the screen. Thank you, Jason, for being here. Let's just
My pleasure.
get you to the airport. Thanks, and see you the next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.